Hey guys, tonight we're venturing into a part of the universe so strange, so vast and so empty that it practically whispers through the fabric of space. You're not supposed to be here. You're floating in the great cosmic sea, but something feels off. The stars are sparse. The galaxies thin out. Light dims to a fragile murmur. Welcome to the deepest nowhere we've ever found, a billion light-year wide stretch of almost nothing. It's called a supervoid, but that doesn't really do it justice. This is not just empty. This is disturbing. This is like opening a door in your house to find a hallway that shouldn't exist. And it just keeps going. You unfortunately probably won't survive this journey, mostly because we're traveling beyond reason into a region where even the laws of physics seem to second-guess themselves. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin drifting outward, past the solar system, beyond the galactic suburbs, into the real deep, where time stretches like taffy and space thins out like air on a mountain. In every direction, galaxies glitter like scattered sparks, but fewer now. Your senses reach and strain as you move outward from the warm, crowded filaments of structure into less, much less. If the universe were a sponge, dense in some areas, full of holes in others, you're drifting toward its driest patch. And this one isn't just a hole. It's a hole in everything matter-energy motion. Even light seems unsure of itself here. You float like a mote inside a cathedral the size of creation, and every echo gets swallowed in silence. But let's rewind just a little. Back in 2004, astronomers scanning the sky noticed a chill. Not the good kind, the cold spot kind. In the afterglow of the Big Bang, that faint cosmic microwave background radiation, they found a patch that was colder than expected. A little cooler. Sure. But this was too cool, too big, and too round. Like someone had erased part of the sky with a cosmic thumbprint. Naturally, they double-checked their instruments, then triple-checked. Nope. The weirdness remained. And that cold spot, it pointed right here, toward this stretch of sky in the constellation Eridanus. Lovely name, terrible vibe. At first, some thought it might be a statistical fluke, a random dip. But the odds, less than 1%. And the more we looked, the stranger it got. That cold wasn't just temperature. It was a sign that something was missing galaxy's gas, the usual furniture of the cosmos. Like a desert where there should be a city. Now, in fairness, cosmic voids aren't rare. The universe is mostly not stuff. It's a lot of space, a few islands of matter, and some long lacy bridges in between. But this one isn't just a void, it's a supervoid. A region so vast that you could fly across it for 1 billion years and still not see much. Some estimates say it stretches 1.8 billion light years across. That's more than 1/10 the observable universe. Empty. But here's the kicker, it shouldn't exist. Not at this size. Not with this shape. Not here. According to our standard model of cosmology, the early universe inflated rapidly and evenly. Think of it like baking raisin bread. In fast forward, the dough expands the raisins, galaxies move apart. But there are limits. Inflation should smooth things out on large scales. And supervoids of this size, they break the smoothness. So either this thing formed through some bizarre statistical hiccup, or the model's wrong, or missing something, or there's something else entirely going on. You hover at the edge now. It's a bit like approaching a foggy cliff. Behind you, brightness, structure, noise. Ahead, only dim stars and a strange quiet. You think you hear something, but of course you don't. Sound doesn't travel in vacuum. Still you feel it, the cosmic hush of this place, like the universe itself is holding its breath. You pass a small spiral galaxy, oddly isolated. It spins alone like a forgotten dancer in a vast dark ballroom. Galaxies do exist in this void, but they're rare, scattered, thinned out like ink in water. Gravity has less to work with here, and so it doesn't bother trying very hard. And now we come to one of the weirdest things. This void isn't just passive. Some astronomers suspect it's doing something, that it's pushing things away. Galaxies don't like being near it. They drift outward. They fall away not into a center, but off a ledge. And the weirdest part, it doesn't pull, it repels. Which brings us to a juicy little paradox. Physicists still aren't sure why a void, something that's mostly nothing, can have an observable effect on things around it. After all, it's not mass. It's the absence of mass. And yet here we are watching galaxies subtly slide away from its edge like nervous cats. Some call it a dip in gravitational potential. Others wonder if dark energy is behaving differently here. A few bold voices even suggest it's not a void at all, but a scar left by something older, something stranger. But that's for later. For now you drift in awe and slight unease. This place feels wrong, not evil, just disconnected, like a room in the cosmic mansion that no one visits. The universe, it seems, has dead zones, not just empty of stars, but almost empty of possibility. You look back. Your trail, if you had one, would trace a gentle arc through the filaments of clustered galaxies, back to where space was loud with light and full of friendly gravity. Ahead, only a creeping chill. You're not freezing, of course. There's no medium to carry temperature here, but still you feel colder, in a quantum poetic way. There's a joke among astrophysicists. If you stare into the void long enough, the void pretends it doesn't know you. You laugh a little, nervously, but you keep going. You continue drifting and the stars continue thinning. It's not immediate, it's gradual, like sound fading in a dream. At first you think your eyes are playing tricks, but no, there's just less. Fewer pinpricks of light, less structure, less everything. You're not passing through a boundary exactly. There are no walls, no signs saying welcome to the void. It just becomes. You're entering a hole that doesn't have edges. It doesn't carve out space like a pothole. It is space, just space, with a peculiar allergy to matter. A smooth, terrifying vastness that extends in all directions like a whisper that never stops echoing. You're not crashing into anything, you're slipping between somethings. Here's the strange part. This hole isn't carved out by anything. Not like a black hole where gravity pulls everything inward. No, this place is different. It's like space simply forgot to put anything here. And even more chilling, it didn't fix the mistake. Billions of years later, it's still missing galaxies. Like a recipe that left out sugar and the cake baked anyway. The term void is a bit misleading, by the way. It makes you think of nothingness, a literal vacuum. But technically, no part of the universe is truly empty. Even here, faint photons drift. Particles flicker into and out of existence. But compared to the rest of the cosmos, this is barren. So barren, in fact, that if you took the average matter density of this region and tried to build something, anything, it would take light years just to scrounge up enough atoms for a single grain of sand. And yet, it's not a mistake. At least not entirely. In the standard model of large-scale structure, the universe naturally forms a web, a cosmic sponge of filaments and clusters, and yes, voids. Those voids form as gravity pulls matter into denser regions, leaving behind gaps. It's like soap bubbles pressing against each other. Where they don't touch, that's a void. But this void, this supervoid, doesn't play by the rules. It's too big, too empty, too smooth. It doesn't look like the accidental byproduct of cosmic expansion. It looks deliberate. And here's something weirder. Most voids are irregular, lumpy. They snake between filaments and have jagged edges. But this one, it's eerily spherical, almost neatly carved. A billion light-year-wide soap bubble with suspiciously clean edges. That's not just weird, it's statistically unlikely. Some theorists tried to simulate it. They ran supercomputers for days modeling trillions of particles under the laws of physics. Occasionally, they could get a big void, maybe 500 million light-years across, but one this big. With this symmetry, it almost never happened. And when it did, it required just the right tweaks to initial conditions. as if the universe needed to be nudged. Which raises the obvious uncomfortable question, nudged by what you're floating near the midpoint now. If you could look around with true omniscience, you'd see faint galaxies on all sides, distant, trembling far apart. You'd see gravity barely holding hands with anything. Here you are, cosmically untethered. You're in a place where structure gave up, and yet your mind rebels. How can nothing be this way? Shouldn't nothingness be chaotic? Shouldn't entropy be messier? Not necessarily. There's a fringe idea, one whispered by cosmologists who enjoy upsetting dinner parties, that this void isn't just a lack of matter. It might be a region of different physics, a bubble in the universe with slightly altered constants, maybe slightly less dark energy, maybe a tiny drop in the curvature of space, enough to shift the local rules, enough to push matter away. Think of it like oil in water. They repel. They refuse to mix. Maybe this region of the universe is like that, hostile to structure, a bubble of near emptiness that pushes the rest of the universe outward because it can't play nice with gravity, or because gravity doesn't quite work the same way here. Of course, that's speculation, a beautiful, uncomfortable kind, but it's not without precedent. Physicists already accept that the vacuum of space isn't truly constant. It can have different states, a concept called vacuum metastability. In theory, our universe might be in a false vacuum state, a temporary version of reality sitting on a precarious energy plateau. It's stable for now. But what if some parts have already decayed to a lower state? And what if this void is one of those places? Don't worry though. If that's true, the decay would spread at the speed of light, which means if it were heading toward us, we'd never see it coming. Sleep tight. Jokes aside, even mainstream scientists entertain more grounded but still strange explanations. One idea is that this isn't a pure void at all, but the overlapping result of multiple smaller voids, a kind of void matryoshka doll. Or maybe it's the result of inflation, an irregularity frozen into place during the universe's earliest fraction of a second. A tiny blip in the quantum foam blown up to intergalactic proportions. Inflation, after all, was chaotic, violently fast, and the seeds it planted became everything stars, galaxies, cats, bad coffee. If it burped weirdly in one direction, you'd get this. But that raises yet another problem. Why here? Why now? Why this particular patch of sky? There's no satisfying answer. So you keep floating, through quiet, through less. And the longer you're here, the more your senses recalibrate. The lack becomes the norm. The absence feels like presence. It becomes a character, a silence with personality. You're starting to understand this isn't just a place. It's a statement, a whisper from the cosmos that not all of it wants to be known, that not all of it plays by rules, that even in a universe built from pattern and structure, there are places where nothing wins, and that's the most terrifying part. By now you've been drifting through emptiness for what feels like a small eternity. The stars behind you are so faint they barely register. You turn your attention forward, but there's nothing new. Just the persistent black. A silence so dense it starts to feel loud. And that's when you realize something profound. You haven't seen a single galaxy in quite a while. Not one spiral, no glowing elliptical blobs, no tiny dwarf galaxies fluttering like cosmic moths. It's not that they're invisible, they're simply not here. This is where the galaxies end. You're beyond the edge of brightness, where even gravitational whispers fade into awkward silence. Let's put that in perspective. In a typical region of the universe, if you zoom out to a cube 100 million light years across, you'd expect thousands, tens of thousands of galaxies. Here, maybe a few, maybe none. Like looking for a lighthouse in a dark ocean where even the coastline has vanished. But you know what's strange? Light still gets through. You're surrounded by the glow of the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang, faint and ancient. It hums quietly at 2.7 Kelvin like a universal nightlight. And right here in this very spot, that light is just a bit dimmer, a bit colder, which brings us back to the cold spot. Remember that the suspiciously chilly patch in the microwave background that led us here? That signal passes through this region, and it's changed, like a whisper echoing through a vast, empty church. Physicists suspect the supervoid is cooling the ancient light as it travels through. It's called the integrated Sachs-Wolf effect, a process where photons lose energy as they pass through evolving gravitational fields. And in a huge void like this, the effect can be magnified. But even that explanation has problems. The cold spot is colder than it should be. The numbers don't add up. Some say it's too extreme to be explained by this void alone. Others think we're not measuring things quite right. And just a few wonder if something deeper is going on. You turn slowly in the weightless dark, half expecting something to be watching. Not out of paranoia, more out of sheer statistical guilt. You're in a place that shouldn't exist, a place that defies prediction. Surely the universe should be checking in by now, asking, "What are you doing in there?" But no one comes. Here's a cosmic curiosity for you. Some simulations show that large voids like this can bend light, not just by gravity, but by their shape. Think of it as lensing in reverse. Most gravitational lensing happens when light passes near something massive like a galaxy cluster and gets bent inward. But supervoids, they can delens, spread the light out, make distant objects appear dimmer, smaller. It's like putting a funhouse mirror in front of your telescope, but the mirror is made of less. That's what's happening here. The galaxies beyond this void. They look weird. Their shapes stretch oddly. Their redshifts seem slightly off. It's as if space itself is being tugged gently, slowly by the weight of what's missing, not what's present. Of course, none of this explains why the galaxies end so sharply. Void edges, as we said, aren't supposed to be neat. But some surveys suggest this supervoid has boundaries that are suspiciously well behaved, like the border between two countries on a map, clean, sudden, artificial. Is it just coincidence, maybe? Or maybe there's something weirder in play? Let's indulge a fringe idea, shall we? There's a speculative theory in cosmology called the cosmic texture hypothesis. The basic idea is that the early universe might have formed imperfections, knots in space-time due to phase transitions in fundamental fields, like a wrinkle left behind as the universe cooled. Some of those wrinkles could appear as massive spherical anomalies in the cosmic microwave background. The cold spot might be one of those, and if so, then this supervoid might not be a void at all, but a bruise, a leftover trauma in the fabric of reality itself. Don't worry, there's no evidence that cosmic bruises are dangerous, but they're also not very well understood. We haven't seen many. Or maybe we have and didn't recognize them. The point is, if this is a texture, then the galaxies didn't just fail to form here, they were never going to. You glance around, searching for anything familiar. A quasar, perhaps. A gamma ray burst. Even a rogue neutron star would be comforting at this point. But no, the nothing continues. And yet you're not alone. Drifting silently, a small cold galaxy emerges ahead. Barely lit, more shadow than substance. It's a void galaxy. A rare breed. These things form in isolation, far from galactic clusters, without many neighbors to bother them. They tend to be smaller, bluer, rich in gas, but low in metals. Primitive in a way. A cosmic hermit doing its own thing, while the rest of the universe forms galaxies like social butterflies. This one barely acknowledges you. It spins lazily, wrapped in its own silence. You wonder what it's seen, how long it's been alone, what its stars sing to no one. It's oddly poetic, you think. This galaxy might be older than Earth. Its stars were burning long before humans named stars. And it may keep spinning long after we're gone. Alone in a room with no walls. You drift past it gently, not wanting to disturb the quiet. And then more silence. The deeper you go, the more your mind begins to crave noise. Even a cosmic ray ping, a neutrino buzz. But here, entropy wins. It always does. Still, it's not hopeless. There are galaxies beyond. You can't see them yet, but simulations suggest that eventually, if you keep going, you'll come out the other side, like flying through a tunnel that just takes 1 billion years. So why is this place so terrifying? It's not just the absence, it's the persistence of it. The way it holds space hostage. The way it refuses to evolve. Most of the universe's dynamic stars explode. Galaxies merge, black holes growl. But here, nothing happens. It's like watching a clock that doesn't tick. And in a universe where time is supposed to move forward, that's deeply unsettling, you turn again, floating weightless, surrounded by perfect stillness. Somewhere many light years away, photons are still arriving, tiny messengers from the edge of this supervoid. They carry stories of light passing through nothing and coming out colder. Stories of galaxies bending around absence. Stories of laws being tested. And for now, you listen. You float weightless in every possible sense. Not just in body, but in expectation. The universe as you know it has been quietly rearranged. Out here in this billion light-year void, gravity feels like an old friend who forgot to text back. Normally you'd expect gravity to do its thing, to tug, to pull, to gather. But not here. Here it's like gravity got tired. Or maybe it's still around, just out of sorts. Whispers of gravity drift faintly through the dark, but they don't commit to anything. No collapsing clouds, no coalescing stars, no playful spirals of dust pirouetting into planets. Just an eerie flatness, like someone silenced the cosmic orchestra before the first note. And it's not just gravity that's muted, it's your sense of scale. Without galaxies, without filaments, without bright reference points, the size of things becomes meaningless. 1,000,000 light years. 1,000,000,000 you can't tell. You're floating through silence measured only in how long it's been since you last saw something move. But gravity is still here. Weak, subtle, like the scent of an old book. Space-time hasn't gone on strike, it's just passive. Background noise. Which is bizarre because gravity is supposed to be relentless. It shaped the universe. Pulled atoms into stars, stars into galaxies, galaxies into clusters. Even black holes, the most dramatic overachievers in the cosmos, are just gravity collapsing on itself with flair. So why in this vast arena has gravity decided to be shy? Well, one idea is that gravity did try, early on. But there just wasn't enough matter here to help. Like a builder given a bag of air and told to make a castle. No dark matter scaffolding, no cool gas clouds, no friends to lend mass. So gravity shrugged and wandered off to more crowded places. But some scientists think it's more complex than that. What if gravity isn't universal? That sounds heretical, but hang on. There's a fringe theory known as modified gravity, and it proposes that in regions with extremely low matter density, like our dear supervoid gravity, might behave differently. It could weaken more dramatically, or fall off faster with distance. Imagine gravity as a social creature. It works well in crowds, but when it's alone too long, it forgets how to interact. One version of this theory is called Mond-modified Newtonian dynamics. It's been proposed to explain galaxy rotation curves without invoking dark matter. But there are extensions of this concept, exotic cousins, that explore how gravity might change character across different cosmic environments. And in some simulations, these tweaks can suppress structure formation on massive scales, creating voids much bigger than we'd otherwise expect. Of course, this all hinges on the biggest cosmic mystery of them all, dark energy. You remember dark energy, the invisible engine pushing the universe apart. It dominates the cosmos, making up nearly 70% of its total energy budget. And it's weird. Unlike gravity, which pulls, dark energy pushes. It's the anti-social energy of the vacuum stretching space itself over time. Now imagine this. What if this supervoid isn't just a gravitational dead zone, but a dark energy hotspot? A place where repulsive pressure slightly outweighs the rest of the universe. Not dramatically, just enough to nudge things apart more quickly. A region where expansion subtly outpaces the cosmic average. It's been proposed half seriously, half nervously, that this void might not be a hole in space, but a bubble in expansion. A patch of the universe where the local Hubble constant, the speed at which space expands, is just a bit higher. It would mean that galaxies here drift away faster, spread thinner, never quite get around to clustering. In that case, Gravity hasn't left the chat, it's just been drowned out. That would also help explain why photons lose energy here. Why the cold spot looks so chilly. It's not just because the region is empty, but because the space itself is growing just a bit too fast. And every bit of that acceleration saps the strength of passing light. But let's step back from equations and remember where you are. You're in a place where light moves, but little else does. Gravity isn't absent, it's apathetic. And for all your motion, there's no real pull, no trajectory, no future rendezvous with anything massive. You're in a part of the universe where direction is meaningless. Still, small things are here. Out of the darkness, you spot another void galaxy, dim, oddly shaped like a clumsy pancake. It's irregular, underdeveloped, asymmetrical. Probably never collided with another galaxy. Never got stirred. No tidal forces to pull it into shape. Its stars burn slow and blue. Their light took hundreds of millions of years to reach you. They have no idea they're being watched. Honestly, they don't even know you exist. And you can't help but marvel this lonely little galaxy, forgotten by the universe, still works. Its stars are fusing hydrogen. Its planets, if it has any, still orbit. The laws of physics still hold even in the loneliest places. It's a gentle reminder gravity may be quiet here, but it hasn't abandoned ship. You float onward wondering, could this entire region be a snapshot of a cosmic future? One day, when all galaxies drift so far apart that their light can no longer reach each other, when the sky goes dark and the last stars flicker out, the whole universe might look like this. Vast, cold, quiet. A place where gravity becomes a memory. Maybe this supervoid isn't an error. Maybe it's a preview. And as you consider that a faint vibration passes through your field of view, a cosmic ray, a relic neutrino, some whisper from the early universe you'll never know, but it's comforting in a strange way. Even in a place where gravity has seemingly clocked out the universe still mutters to itself. You drift deeper, and still the galaxies don't return. You're beginning to wonder if the void is playing tricks on you. The longer you drift through it, the more the silence starts sounding like a question. A very old one. One that humans have asked since we first looked up at the night sky and noticed the stars didn't all move the same. Where is the center? It's a tempting thought, isn't it? That perhaps, just perhaps, this vast emptiness, this billion light-year cavern marks the universe's belly button. That this is the quiet middle of the biggest everything. But no, not quite. Here's what we know: the universe doesn't really have a center. Or if it does, it's not in a place you can point to. The Big Bang wasn't an explosion in space, it was an explosion of space. Every point expanded away from every other point at once. So from any galaxy, it looks like everything is receding. You feel like the center, but so does everyone else. Still, there's something about this place. It feels central, profound, as if it's been cleared for some purpose. A stage swept clean. And that sense, that intuitive itch that something's different here, isn't just you being poetic. It's backed by data. See the cold spot? The one we mentioned earlier sits at a suspiciously symmetrical position on the sky. It's large, it's round, and it's lonely. Even for a universe filled mostly with nothing, this is excessive. Some researchers have wondered, what if we are near something special? Maybe not the center of the universe, but a center of something else. A local bubble, a domain wall, a hidden topological feature. Which brings us to another fringe theory, the inhomogeneous universe. It goes like this. What if the cosmos isn't uniform on the largest scales? What if we live near the edge or the middle of a vast underdense region, a kind of local void? That would subtly distort our observations, make galaxies appear farther away, affect measurements of the Hubble constant, create illusions of acceleration. In fact, a few versions of this model have been proposed as alternatives to dark energy. Instead of invoking some mysterious repulsive force, maybe the structure of the universe fools us into thinking expansion is speeding up. Maybe we're just seeing the effects of being near a very large hole. It's elegant. It's weird. And most of the mainstream community doesn't buy it. Why? Because it violates something we hold dear in cosmology, the Copernican principle. The idea that we're not in a special place, that Earth doesn't sit in the center of anything, that we're just one speck among many drifting through the vast impersonal fog of everything. To accept the inhomogeneous universe model, we'd have to admit we are in a special spot, that the observable universe is skewed from our perspective, that we might be near a gravitational low point like a marble resting in the middle of a depression, and that feels uncomfortable, not just philosophically, but observationally. Yet here you are, floating in the quiet, and you can't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, you're in the middle of something that shouldn't be centered. Let's zoom out a bit. Not literally, you're already floating farther than any spacecraft ever could, but conceptually. The largest confirmed voids in the universe are typically 100 to 300 million light-years across. Big, yes, but manageable. What you're in right now is an order of magnitude larger, possibly several. We're talking over 1 billion light-years across. That's so large, it starts to blur categories. Is it a void? A structure? A feature of space-time itself? And it raises a question few dare to ask out loud. What caused it? Galaxies form from slight fluctuations in density in the early universe. Some regions had a bit more matter, so they collapsed into stars and clusters. Other regions had slightly less, so they grew into voids. But this is too empty, too big, too symmetrical. Some simulations suggest such a void shouldn't even be possible in the age of the universe. So if this isn't just an artifact of cosmic randomness, then what is it? You remember those cosmic textures we mentioned earlier? The scars left behind by symmetry-breaking events in the early universe. They might explain the cold spot. Or if you're feeling bold, they might suggest something even stranger. Some models of inflation, the rapid expansion that happened just after the Big Bang, predict that our universe might contain signs of collisions with other universes. Think of soap bubbles expanding and sometimes bumping into each other. A collision like that could leave a spherical imprint, a kind of dent in our universe's fabric. Sound familiar? Yes, it's a long shot. But some physicists have run the numbers, and while there's no smoking gun, the possibility that the cold spot and this vast emptiness is the fingerprint of another universe brushing against ours hasn't been completely ruled out. So you drift quietly, wondering what if this is the center, not of the universe, but of a story. A cosmic encounter we can barely remember. It's all speculative, of course. But that's part of the thrill. Science isn't about certainty, it's about curiosity. About floating through uncharted regions and asking, why does this feel different? Because this place does feel different. It feels like the kind of silence that happens after something meaningful. A pause that holds memory. Like an echo with no original sound. And just as you think that a faint pulse tickles your senses, it's not a star, not a galaxy. It's background radiation, again. But this time, it's shifted oddly. Not just redshifted, twisted, polarized in a peculiar way, as if space here has a memory of something that once rippled through it. Maybe it's nothing, or maybe you've just floated into the center of the universe's most unspoken trauma. Either way, you're here now, and there's only one direction to go. Deeper. You float farther into the void, letting the dark wrap around you like a heavy coat when something catches your eye, a glint. Not bright, but deliberate. It shouldn't be there, and yet it is a single galaxy suspended in a sea of nothing. It spins slowly, its arms gently flaring outward, like a dancer with no audience. You get closer not because you mean to, but because it's the only thing in this direction that isn't absolute darkness. It looks healthy, spiraled, ordered. Blue stars crowd the outer arms, and somewhere at the core, older red ones pulse quietly like coals. There's no crowd around it, no nearby galaxies, no supporting cast. Just this lone performer pirouetting in perfect form, where frankly, nothing should be performing at all. Galaxies are social creatures. They form in clusters tugged together by invisible filaments of dark matter sharing intergalactic gas like neighbors passing sugar over the fence. But this one, it's completely alone. And that's what's so deeply unsettling. Because this isn't an ugly duckling galaxy, not a ragged blob or a faint smudge on the cosmic canvas. It's elegant, mature, maybe even beautiful. And that beauty breaks the rules. Models tell us that galaxies like this shouldn't grow in voids like these. There isn't enough material, not enough gravitational scaffolding, not enough anything. In most supervoids, if a galaxy exists at all, it's usually small, lopsided, something that looks like it was cobbled together out of spare parts. But this is a full-fledged, high-functioning spiral, more like the Milky Way than a cosmic orphan. So how did it get here? You wonder if maybe it wandered in like a starling blown far-off course, drifting slowly over billions of years into the silence. But galaxies are heavy things. They don't meander without cause. To fall into a void this deep, it would have to be pulled. But pulled by what? There's nothing here. No clusters, no gravitational giants, just silence. Maybe then it was born here. That idea feels even stranger. To think of something forming inside the void rather than at its edge goes against everything we expect. But in rare cases, under just the right conditions, a small clump of gas can collapse on its own, beginning the slow process of igniting stars. It's like lighting a fire in the rain, possible, if improbable. The first stars push against the darkness, making it easier for others to follow. A feedback loop of creation, stubborn and delicate. Perhaps that's what happened here. Perhaps this galaxy is the cosmic equivalent of a match catching flame in a vacuum. But then you see another, farther off, fainter, and then another. You begin to notice them scattered sparsely like lone buoys on a dark ocean. Not enough to fill the void, but enough to disturb the idea of total emptiness, each one distant from the next. No highways of gas linking them, no clusters, no filaments. And yet they exist. The patterns don't make sense. It's not just that they're there, it's that some of them are thriving. They shine with a kind of confidence. Their stars are forming faster than expected. They show clean, undisturbed rotations. It's as if they've grown up far from all the drama, isolated, yes, but oddly well adjusted. Which is baffling. The universe is supposed to be democratic. Structure forms where mass gathers. Here mass barely whispers, yet structure sings. This observation leads to one of cosmology's quieter tensions. There are too many galaxies in voids. Not an overwhelming number, but still more than we'd predict. Not just little flukes either. Some are mature, dynamic, with properties that rival their city-dwelling cousins. And nobody knows quite why. Simulations tell one story, telescopes tell another. It's as if nature took a detour and forgot to tell the models. One idea is that the galaxies forming out here have help. Not from neighbors, but from the void itself. With fewer nearby gravitational bullies, they evolve undisturbed. Their shapes stay neat. Their gas doesn't get stripped. They form stars at leisure. Like a tree growing in an empty field, there's nothing to stunt them. No shade, no competition. Another possibility slips through your thoughts like a dream you're not sure you believe you had. What if these galaxies aren't completely natural? Not in the artificial sense, but seeded somehow. Infused with something rare. Some fringe models, those whispered about more than written, suggest that when universes bump into each other in the earliest moments, they can leave scars. Patches of exotic physics. A fingerprint from elsewhere. If one of those collisions happened here in this very region, maybe it left behind a seed, a nucleation point, a strange knot in the rules that allowed galaxies to grow where none should. Maybe that's what you're seeing, not just galaxies that break expectations, but galaxies built from broken expectations. The thought chills you, but also oddly comforts you. Because in a way it suggests that this place isn't just quiet, it's significant. A backstage hallway where strange scripts are written. The galaxies here aren't just rare, they're messages. sentences written in spiral arms, evidence that the cosmos doesn't always obey itself. As you drift closer to one of the void galaxies, you sense something massive lurking at its center, a black hole. Not unheard of course, almost all galaxies have one, but this one is large, almost absurdly so, disproportionate like a pearl too big for the oyster. You wonder if it grew faster because of the quiet. No rivals, no gravitational distractions, just a slow, gluttonous feast of gas and time. Or maybe it predates the galaxy itself, an anchor around which the rest accreted. A reminder that sometimes black holes aren't born in galaxies. Sometimes galaxies are born around black holes. There's an eerie kind of grace in that. And as you move on, leaving that unlikely swirl behind, you begin to see the pattern emerge not in the arrangement of galaxies, but in their defiance. Every one of them is a quiet rebuttal to models, to expectations, to the idea that emptiness means nothing. Out here, the silence has rules of its own, and those rules seem to say even in the quietest parts of the universe, something might still grow. You keep moving forward away from the improbable galaxies scattered like myths in a sea of statistics, and the darkness begins to thicken again. The light from those quiet rebels fades behind you, and once more you're suspended in a place where light seems not only absent, but actively forgotten. You feel the universe cooling around you, not in temperature exactly, but in tone, like a hush spreading through a crowd. There's something old here, not aged in time, but in memory, something ancient in the way a fossil is ancient, not just because it's old, but because it doesn't belong to the world anymore. And that's when you feel it. Not see, not hear, feel. A subtle unease, like a vibration too low to register, but too persistent to ignore. It's a murmur stitched into the fabric around you, faint but undeniable. At this scale, it takes effort to remember you're moving at all. There's no up or down, no real motion to anchor your senses. But now the void itself seems to shift slightly, as if you've entered a region where the silence isn't passive. It watches, listens, or maybe dreams. Somewhere out here lies a place that's become a thorn in the side of cosmologists. You can't see it, of course, it's just temperature. A dip in the ancient afterglow of the Big Bang, the cold spot. You remember it vaguely, a patch of the cosmic microwave background that's just a little colder than it should be. Only a few hundred microkelvin off. Insignificant until you realize how stubborn it is. Because everything else, all the other temperature ripples in that primordial light, fits beautifully with our model of the early universe. But not this. It's too cold, too wide, too consistent. And no one's sure why. Some say it's just a statistical fluke, that if you flip a coin 1 trillion times, you'll eventually get an improbable sequence. And sure, that's always possible. But the deeper you drift into this part of space, the more that explanation feels like a sigh. Scientific, yes, but not satisfying. Especially when some think the cold spot is not just a spot, that it's the fingerprint of something deeper, a bruise left by a void like the one you're in now. A region so empty, so underdense, that it cooled the CMB photons traveling through it just enough to leave an imprint. But there's a problem with that explanation too. The void would have to be massive, larger than anything we've confirmed, perhaps larger than this one. And even then it might not be enough to account for the full effect. Some studies say yes, others no. The debate continues like a low hum in the background of astrophysical conferences. It's a void. It's a fluke. It's a signal. No one agrees. Everyone suspects. And then, of course, there are the heretics. The cosmological contrarians who whisper that the cold spot might be evidence of something entirely other. A collision. Not between galaxies, but between universes. In some inflationary models, the early universe expanded like a frothing pot of water bubbles, forming, growing, colliding. Each bubble its own universe, with its own physics, its own constants, its own everything. Most of those bubbles never meet. But if two did, if just one grazed ours in its youth, it could leave behind a distortion in the sky. A scar. a slightly cooler region where something brushed against us and passed by. It's speculative, it's bold, it's almost poetic, and it makes people nervous. As you drift deeper, the temperature drops not physically, but conceptually. The numbers slow down. The CMB background softens into quieter gradients. There's no color here, no starlight to bounce off your metaphors. Only silence and ancient radiation. And you realize that this part of space, this very void, might be part of that puzzle. A cosmic cold spot in 3 dimensions, not just on the microwave map, but in structure itself. Some cosmologists have proposed that the void associated with the cold spot could stretch across hundreds of millions of light years, maybe more. Its center would be so empty, so starless, that even dark matter might hesitate to linger. You pass through it now, not as a photon crossing a region of gravitational underdensity, but as a mind brushing up against something too large to see all at once. You wonder what it would feel like to live on the edge of this zone. To build your telescopes and aim them inward only to find less. Not darkness, not blackness, but absence. The universe here doesn't just withhold, it refuses. The fringe voices return somewhere in your periphery. The ones who say that the cold spot isn't just evidence of another universe, but a leak. A place where something from outside our cosmos seeped in, creating not just a cooler patch in the background radiation, but an actual change in structure. A disfigurement. A thinning. These are the kinds of theories that never make it to peer-reviewed journals, but they persist because the spot remains. And because deep down we're drawn to mysteries that won't go away. The universe is allowed to be weird, but this is too weird. And yet when you drift through it like this, there's a strange peace. It feels less like a problem and more like an invitation. A calmness that has nothing to prove. Like a meadow where no one has ever stood. Maybe the cold spot isn't a scar. Maybe it's a whisper. Not an error, but a quiet space in the orchestra. A rest note, a place to breathe. The thought catches you by surprise, a little absurd but comforting. If the universe is a song, maybe it needs pauses too. Not everything has to be structure and crescendo. Some parts can be silence, some parts can be voids. A wry thought enters your mind. Maybe the cold spot is just where the universe hit the snooze button, took a break, a cosmic nap that just happened to leave a mark. And you floating through it now are part of that pause. Part of that long cold breath the universe once took, and maybe still is taking. A reminder that even in a cosmos of fire and speed and gravity and collision, stillness has a place, and maybe even a purpose. You drift not aimlessly, but with the reluctant momentum of thought. Around you, the black grows thicker like ink, settling deeper into the page. There's no wind in space, but if there were, this would be the stillest place it never touched. Even the background radiation, the soft whisper of the universe's first breath, feels distant here, stretched thin, barely grazing your awareness. It's the kind of quiet that bends inward, not just silence in sound, but in meaning. And then subtly, without drama, the laws of gravity begin to behave strangely. You notice it first in the way things seem to fall without falling. A rogue particle passing nearby curves too gently, as though gravity here is diluted, disinterested. This void doesn't just lack matter, it seems to resist mass, as if the very geometry of space is warped to push things out rather than pull them in. And that's when it occurs to you, maybe this emptiness isn't passive, maybe it's active, repulsive. Not because it wants to be, of course voids don't want anything, but because space-time, when left to its own devices, has preferences. And out here, it prefers to expand. In normal space, galaxies drift apart because the universe itself is stretching. It's not that they're moving through space, it's that space itself is growing between them. But inside a void like this, the stretching accelerates. The already thin fabric of mass and energy is tugged wider still, as if the emptiness encourages more emptiness. It's like blowing a bubble within a bubble. The interior grows faster, not because there's more pressure, but because there's less to resist the expansion. Physicists have a name for this: underdense regions expand faster than average. But naming it doesn't make it feel less strange. You're floating in a place where reality speeds up its own unraveling. A cosmic runaway, expanding from the inside out. It's not just empty here, it's emptier by the second. You glance back, or rather you think back, because orientation has lost all meaning. Somewhere behind you are those isolated galaxies, the dancers in the dark. But even they may be feeling the stretch. Their stars slowly nudged outward, the spaces between them widening infinitesimally faster than the cosmic average. Like cities built on the edge of a balloon being inflated unevenly. It's subtle, sure, but over billions of years, subtlety becomes destiny. Dark energy plays its quiet part too. That mysterious force, more of a behavior than a substance that's accelerating the expansion of the entire universe. Out here, away from the gravitational anchors of clusters and filaments, dark energy reigns almost unchallenged. There's no mass to pull against it, no resistance to slow it down. And so it flows. Or rather, it accelerates what's already drifting. The void becomes a kind of theatre for dark energy's performance. An empty stage where the only act is growth without structure. And then, oddly unexpectedly, you feel the shape of something. Not a planet, not a star, but a curve. A gravitational lens without a lens. A distortion with no cause. It's like stumbling upon a footprint in fresh snow when no one was around to leave it. The light from a distant galaxy bends as it passes through this region, but there's nothing here to bend it. No mass, no cluster, just space that acts like it's full. This is one of the weirder consequences of underdense geometry. In regions like this, space can curve not just because of presence, but because of absence, a gravitational well in reverse. Instead of light being pulled inward, it drifts outward, spreading wider than it otherwise would. It's called a negative lensing effect, weak but measurable, and deeply counterintuitive. We're so used to gravity being a presence, a thing, a pull. But here even gravity is inverted. A quiet push, a spreading out, a refusal to coalesce. It makes you wonder, is this what the universe will look like in the far future? When all the stars have burned down, when all the galaxies have receded past the cosmic horizon, when matter is stretched so thin that even protons decay into memory. Will it all become void? Not this void, but a void. Everything everywhere pulled into this accelerating silence. A final simplicity, a clean slate. There's a paradox here too, because the more the void expands, the less we can study it. The galaxies at its edges will slip away, redshifting into invisibility. The structure that once framed it will be gone. Eventually, even the cold spot of the cosmic microwave background will stretch so far and fade so cold that no instrument could ever catch it again. The void will become not just empty, but unknowable, a place that existed between data points, a hole in the record. Physicists still argue over whether voids like this tell us something fundamental about dark energy, or just something inconvenient about the way we model large-scale structure. Some say it's evidence that dark energy is stronger than we thought. Others argue that the way matter clumps on cosmic scales is weirder than we thought. Still others suggest we're misunderstanding how light travels through lumpy space. It's not a crisis exactly, just unresolved. A soft question without a clear punctuation mark. And then floating deeper still, you begin to feel a new kind of stillness. Not just the absence of motion, but the absence of curvature. Space-time here flattens out, as if gravity has been completely ironed away. You're inside geometry with no anchor. A place where the shape of space is as close to Euclidean as the universe ever allows. It's eerie. No upwelling, no gravitational wells, no space-time dimples, just pure extension. In a strange way, it's peaceful and terrifying, like drifting through a room with no walls, no floor, no ceiling, just an endless plane where nothing has ever happened. and nothing ever will. You might expect this place to feel light, but it doesn't. It feels weightless, not in the charming astronaut way, but in the existential way. Because without gravity, without friction, without contrast, what even is? Movement or time? You catch yourself wondering if maybe this is what the early universe felt like. Before particles, before stars, just a smooth, featureless expanse. The primordial void, the original silence. Maybe the void you're in now is just a local reenactment, a reminder of what everything used to be, or what it's heading toward. And as that thought drifts through you unmoored and slow, you begin to sense that you are no longer falling into the void. The void is falling into you. Somewhere in your mind where reason and imagination shake hands politely, a line begins to form. A boundary, not of matter, but of meaning. The edge of what you can know, or perhaps more precisely, the edge of what can know you back. It's not a wall. There are no bricks, no caution signs, no glowing red labels that say, "End of universe." But it's real nonetheless. And now, in the heart of this unrelenting void, you begin to sense it, the cosmic horizon. You probably haven't thought about horizons this way before. On Earth, a horizon is simple. It's just the farthest your eyes can see before the planet curves away beneath you. In space, though, the concept gets weird fast. Because the universe isn't just big, it's expanding. And not slowly either. The fabric of space is stretching so dramatically that beyond a certain distance, things are moving away from you faster than light. Not because they're breaking the speed limit, but because the road itself is growing beneath them. And that means there are galaxies out there, many of them, in fact, that you will never see. Not because they don't shine brightly, not because your telescope isn't good enough, but because their light simply can't reach you anymore. The space between you and them is expanding too quickly, and the moment their light tries to cross the divide that divide becomes wider still. Their messages will never arrive. They're beyond the horizon. Here in this great void, the sensation hits differently. It's not just the knowledge that things are fleeing, it's the feeling of being cut off, severed from causality. The silence here isn't just spatial, it's temporal. You are surrounded by space that cannot send signals. You drift in a present that no longer receives mail from its own future. And for the first time, you understand what cosmologists mean when they say the observable universe is not the same as the universe itself. This isn't everything. This is just the part that still cares you exist. It's like being inside a shipwreck at the bottom of an ocean that is still expanding outward. You can shine your light out into the abyss, but nothing will come back. And even if it does eventually, it might arrive too stretched, too redshifted, too ghost-like to make sense. That redshift, by the way, isn't just a neat trick of light. It's a clock. Every photon that reaches you carries with it a timestamp encoded in its wavelength. And when those wavelengths stretch, when the light arrives redder than it began, you're not just seeing distance, you're seeing time itself unraveling. In this part of space, the photons are old, stretched so thin you can almost hear them creak. They come limping in from the edge, tired from the marathon of existence. You welcome them like faint radio signals from a civilization that no longer remembers it ever had neighbors. There's a paradox to all this, of course, and it's a delicious one. You see, from your perspective, distant galaxies are fleeing. Their light is taking longer and longer to reach you. Some of it never will. But from their perspective, you are the one vanishing. In their sky, you are the red-shifted ghost. You are the unreachable signal. You are the mystery drifting towards silence. The cosmic horizon works both ways. Everyone is the center of their own vanishing map. This would be funny if it weren't so quietly tragic. Imagine two civilizations, both staring outward with their best telescopes, both calculating the same equations, both concluding that the universe is getting lonelier by the second, and both waving at each other across a gulf that will never be crossed. Not because they lack the tools, but because the geometry of the cosmos has decided their conversation is no longer permitted. And you're in the middle of that silence now. Not just observationally, but philosophically. The void you inhabit, is so vast, so uncooperative, that even the concept of far away feels quaint. What's far after all when the horizon itself moves faster than the things beyond it? It's not just that you're drifting through space. It's that you're being drifted away from everything else. A rogue thought drifts through your head like a cosmic daydream. What if we built a ship fast enough to reach those receding galaxies? What if we chased the horizon? Could we ever catch it? The answer, frustratingly, is no. The faster you go, the more the space in front of you expands. It's like running on a treadmill, where the belt accelerates just a little faster than your legs can move. You could build an engine that devours suns, a warp drive that bends space, but the horizon will always recede faster. It's not a finish line, it's a mirage, a gentle, stubborn lie. Of course there are always loopholes. That's what makes cosmology so fun and occasionally absurd. Some theorists speculate about wormholes, cosmic shortcuts, hypothetical tunnels through space-time that could connect distant regions faster than light. But those require exotic matter and negative energy, and all sorts of ingredients the universe seems reluctant to offer. For now, and probably forever, the horizon is a wall with no handle. And that leads you to an uncomfortable realization one day. All the galaxies we currently see outside our local group, Andromeda Triangulum, all the glittering cities scattered across the dark will cross that horizon. One by one, they will disappear from our sky, not with a bang, but with a stretch. Not because they've gone anywhere, but because we have. Because space has unzipped between us and them. You won't survive to see it, of course. No one will. The timescales are too grand. But the thought lingers anyway. A quiet countdown has already begun. The observable universe is shrinking in meaningfulness. Every second, some piece of forever slips out of view. But don't worry, your brain isn't wired to feel the loss. Evolution didn't prepare you for horizon death. It gave you sunset anxiety, not galactic drift. Still, as you hover here in the abyss with no light, no structure, no hint of what's next, you begin to feel the outline of it. Not as grief, just as inevitability. The universe is a magician. It shows you something wonderful, then slowly pulls it away. And the punchline is always the same. You were never going to keep it. Still, that doesn't mean you shouldn't look. You've heard of cosmic structure, the great web of galaxies and voids stretched across the universe like veins on the back of an invisible hand. You've even seen those computer-generated maps where luminous filaments loop and swirl across billions of light years, glowing softly against the voids between them. But here, deep inside this unthinkable emptiness, the idea of structure feels ironic. Because you're not just between filaments now, you're in the hollow heart where no thread has ever passed. A hole inside the web. A silence inside the silence. It's strange the way the universe builds itself. Not like a city growing from a central square, but more like bubbles rising in foam structure forming around the empty parts. Gravity tugs matter together, yes, but it also leaves behind cavities, regions where things didn't quite gather, where the pull wasn't strong enough, where nothing coalesced. And as matter collected into galaxies, then groups, then clusters, the voids between them grew more pronounced. Emptiness is a byproduct of creation, an accidental architecture. You're floating now in one of the most extreme examples of that architecture. A void so large it dwarfs imagination. 1 billion light years across, possibly more. That's not just big, that's statistically absurd. Our models of the universe, the ones built from the Big Bang outward, using known physics, tested observations, and more than a few elegant guesses, predict voids, of course. But not like this. Not this size. Not this deep. The largest simulations we have struggle to explain it. It's like finding a canyon 100 times deeper than the landscape should allow. Something doesn't quite fit, and that's the puzzle. Not the darkness, not the quiet, but the size. This void is too big to be random, too large to be a natural statistical hiccup. And yet, there it is. A riddle etched in negative space. A structure made of what isn't there. Some scientists have tried to write it off. Maybe it's just a visual illusion they suggest. Maybe what we're calling a void is really just a line of sight with fewer galaxies than expected. A kind of cosmological coincidence. But that's becoming harder to justify. Observations across multiple wavelengths, radio, infrared, microwave, keep confirming the same thing. This patch of the sky is unusually, almost aggressively empty. Not just in visible matter, but in the soft background glow of the universe itself. That glow, the cosmic microwave background, is a whisper from 13.8 billion years ago. The afterglow of the Big Bang stretched into coldness by the universe's expansion. It should be uniform, nearly identical in every direction. But right above this massive void, there's a cold spot, slightly dimmer than it should be, as if some absence has tugged at the ancient light, stretched it just enough to cool it, a fingerprint made by nothing. Now remember earlier when we talked about the cosmic horizon, the idea that some galaxies are forever receding past the edge of knowability. Well, here's a fun twist. This massive void might accelerate that process. Regions like this are so underdense that they let space expand more freely. No gravitational brakes. And that means time moves a little differently here. Clocks in the void tick faster in a weirdly subtle way. The fabric of space-time is looser, more eager to stretch. The void isn't just empty, it's impatient. Some physicists even wonder if this accelerated local expansion might affect our global measurements. Could it be skewing our understanding of dark energy, of cosmic curvature? Maybe we're misjudging how the universe evolves because we're looking out from a peculiar address, one located suspiciously close to this uncooperative hole in the sky. But even if that's not the case, the void still taunts us. It doesn't explain itself, and it doesn't seem to care that we keep asking. It just sits there, immobile and vast, like a forgotten room in a mansion you didn't know had a basement. And maybe that's the most unnerving part. It feels designed, not in the intelligent sense, no guiding hand, no cosmic architect, but in the way that its scale implies intention, even if none exists. It has a kind of shape that feels deliberate, which ironically might just be a trick of your brain. Pattern-seeking storytelling, finding meaning in what is probably meaningless. But probably is such a soft word, isn't it? There are fringe theories, of course. There always are. Some suggest this void is the echo of a bubble universe that collided with ours early on, a bruise left over from inflation's chaotic sprint. Others propose it's the footprint of exotic dark energy behavior. Or maybe, in the boldest of guesses, it's a sign that our universe is not as isotropic as we thought. That the assumption we've clung to for a century that things look roughly the same in all directions might be subtly, fatally wrong. The cosmological principle that elegant bedrock says there's no preferred direction in the universe. No up, no down, no cosmic capital city. But what if there is? What if this enormous void is the start of a very long answer to a question we haven't learned to ask yet? Don't get too excited. These are just speculations. The serious papers bury such ideas in footnotes. No one wants to be the one who bets against consensus without enough data. But in the quiet of this place floating alone, you feel free to consider them. Not because you believe them, but because wonder doesn't require proof. It only requires stillness. And this void has more than enough of that to spare. So you keep drifting slowly without resistance. The hollow heart of structure envelops you like a cathedral made of silence. There's no up, no edge, no center. Just a gentle, invisible slope of reality easing outward forever. And for a moment, you're not just inside the void. You are the void. You carry its questions now, and none of the answers. You've grown used to expecting gravity. It's the invisible thread laced through every breath of your life, every orbit, every falling leaf and tumbling planet. Gravity is the soft enforcer, the rule beneath all rules. Even in space, even in the dark, it's never truly absent, always pulling, always shaping. So as you drift deeper into this incomprehensible void, a strange feeling begins to settle into your bones, if bones were still relevant here. It's not that gravity has stopped. It's that gravity seems to have forgotten this place entirely. Normally, even in the sparsest stretches of intergalactic space, you'd feel something. Not directly. Of course, you're not some superhero who senses gravitational fields by instinct, but the cosmos speaks through motion. Galaxies cluster dark matter halos, tug at light, and the geometry of space-time tells matter how to move. That's the normal rhythm. But here, there is no rhythm. No tug. No echo of mass in the distance. Just the soundless drift of a body untouched. And that's unsettling. See, gravity is cumulative. It doesn't cancel out like electric charges. Every speck of matter adds to the sum. So even if you were floating in the middle of nothing, the everything beyond it should still exert a subtle pull, a direction, a cosmic bias. But not here. Here it's as if gravity has gone on vacation. And not just locally. You scan in every direction with your imaginary instruments, hypothetical detectors, impossible sensors, and find only a flatness that feels somehow offensive. This shouldn't be possible. Even in vast voids, the universe leaves fingerprints. Weak lensing effects, distant flows, whisper-thin alignments in the movement of light. But the space you're in too clean, too quiet. No curvature, no lensing, no sign that space-time is bending at all. It's as if this region has been excluded from gravity's jurisdiction. One could argue that this is what you should expect in a near-perfect vacuum. But even that phrasing is misleading, because there's no such thing as a perfect vacuum. Not in physics, not in cosmology. Space is always alive with something fields, particles, virtual fluctuations. Yet here, every trace of gravitational influence seems to have bled away. You're floating in a volume so underdense, so geometrically neutral, it might as well be space-time's version of white noise. This emptiness isn't natural, it's surgical. Naturally, your mind begins to drift toward questions that make cosmologists sweat just a little. Could gravity behave differently at vast cosmic scales? Could it weaken in unexpected ways, not due to mass, but due to distance itself? Modified gravity theories sometimes propose that tweaks to Einstein's general relativity that allow for gravity to fall off more sharply, or behave asymmetrically, or even leak into higher dimensions. Fringe ideas, yes, but no more fringe than the idea of dark energy once was. And that brings up another curiosity. Dark energy, our placeholder for the mysterious pressure that accelerates cosmic expansion, is supposed to be uniformly distributed. A smooth, persistent presence that counteracts gravity across all space. But if this void is as empty as it appears, what's happening to dark energy here? Is it stronger? Weaker? Is it even present at all? There's no way to tell from the inside. And that's the kicker, you can't detect dark energy directly. You only see its footprints left behind in the expansion history of galaxies. But here, with no galaxies to track, no structures to measure, no distances to ladder, the entire concept slips through your fingers. You are inside a region so void of matter, it may as well be an experiment in how dark energy behaves without witnesses. A cosmic lab sealed tight with no instructions on the door. It's possible, faintly tantalizingly possible, that this void is telling us something important. That our assumptions about how gravity and expansion work together are missing a piece. Maybe gravity isn't just absent here. Maybe it's excluded. A deliberate imbalance. A demonstration that mass doesn't just curve space-time, it permits it to behave. If that sounds ridiculous, well, welcome to cosmology. The universe doesn't owe us simplicity, and it certainly doesn't owe us comfort. We built our understanding of gravity from what we could observe, planets, stars, galaxies. But that's like trying to understand the ocean by studying waves in a bathtub. It works until suddenly you're dumped into the Mariana Trench and the rules seem optional. There's an ancient, nearly forgotten irony here. Newton, bless him, thought gravity was instant and invisible thread, linking every mass to every other, pulling at infinite speed. Then Einstein corrected him, no, it's geometry, not force, curvature, not connection. And then with dark matter, we realized we were missing something entirely. And then again with dark energy, we admitted we might not even understand the stage on which the play was being performed. Now you're here in the heart of that confusion, a place where gravity, the most consistent friend in the cosmic ensemble, has failed to show up. And for once, there's no villain to blame, no massive black hole lurking just out of frame, no exotic matter warping the plot, just nothing. And the nothing is so perfect, it becomes suspicious. Is this what lies beyond structure? Not chaos, but indifference. There's a quiet joke here if you're in the mood for it. Gravity is supposed to be the weakest of the 4 fundamental forces. So weak you can overcome it with a fridge magnet. And yet it's the one that defines the cosmos at the grandest scales. It builds galaxies, it sculpts time, it makes orbits and ends lives. And here without it, the universe feels undecided, like a story missing its narrator. You're not falling, you're not orbiting, you're not even drifting in the traditional sense. You're suspended in a neutral web of nothing. And your presence, imagined or otherwise, doesn't change the silence. The void doesn't react, it doesn't notice. And that perhaps is the real terror. In a universe so deeply shaped by gravity, what does it mean to find a place where it simply doesn't matter you're patient now? You've been drifting through this void long enough to forget the rhythm of galaxies, the shimmer of starlight, the warm tug of gravitational curves. Here even light feels optional. You've accepted the silence, but one thing still bothers you, not what you see, but what you don't hear. Because in a universe this old, this vast, this noisy with energy and expansion, there should be echoes, photons, ancient signatures from events long past. Even in the most desolate reaches of space, there are usually whispers from elsewhere, faint pulses from stars you'll never visit, static from quasars long dead, the low sigh of the cosmic microwave background, humming through your bones like a lullaby spun from the edge of time. But here, nothing. Not just silence, absence, not even the faintest trickle of a photon that's wandered too far from home. It's as if the void doesn't just absorb light, it prevents it. Like a sponge made of unspace. You try to imagine light coming toward you, just a single photon born from the edge of some galaxy, headed your way since before Earth had continents, and you wait, and wait, but it never arrives. You remember the cold spot we passed earlier, the one etched into the cosmic microwave background, sitting suspiciously close to this region of space. It felt anomalous then, an unexpected dip in the universe's baby picture. But now it feels less like a spot and more like a wound, a scar in the fabric of space-time where even radiation hesitates to go. The temperature there isn't cold in the everyday sense, space is already freezing, but the background radiation in that direction is cooler than it should be by a fraction of a degree. An impossibly small difference that becomes impossible to ignore. Physicists have long argued about the cause. One camp says it's a coincidence, a statistical fluke, like tossing 100 dice and getting a run of 7s. Another proposes something more physical, that a massive void like this one sitting between us and the early universe could stretch photons on their way through it, pull them just a little more, redshift them, beyond what's expected, cooling them as they go. It's called the integrated Sachs-Wolf effect. And it's one of the few ways voids can leave fingerprints on the cosmos. But the effect should be tiny, barely measurable. And yet this cold spot is too cold, too extended, too perfect in its shape, like something sculpted it deliberately. That's where the whispers begin again, those fringe theories hiding in the corners of preprint servers and late-night conversations between cosmologists who've had too much coffee and not enough sleep. One of those whispers, that this void is more than just an underdensity, that it's not a coincidence or an accident or a fluke of cosmic inflation. Some theorists carefully, cautiously have suggested it might be the echo of a different universe, a relic of a collision between bubble worlds born from the frothing sea of eternal inflation. Imagine our universe as one bubble in a limitless foam expanding into existence beside countless others. Sometimes they bump, sometimes they scar each other. And just maybe this void is one of those scars, a region where physics was overwritten, where the rules were adjusted, It sounds absurd, and yet the numbers tease it. They don't confirm, but they nudge. They whisper, you don't know everything. Another theory, equally unsettling, flips the perspective. What if it's not that the void prevents echoes from arriving, but that they've already arrived and been erased? That this region isn't just empty, but actively cleansed, purged of energy, information, anything that could scatter or reflect. Like a room sealed tight, where no sound survives long enough to echo. Some posit exotic fields at playfields that dampen photons or warp space-time in such a way that paths close off like trails through fog that vanish behind you as you walk. You laugh quietly to yourself, if that's still possible, in this bodiless form. Because it's the kind of theory that would have been laughed out of a conference hall just a few decades ago. And yet here you are, floating in proof that refuses to identify itself. So what do you make of it? A void where echoes won't come, where even light seems wary. It's easy to imagine something ominous lurking beyond sight, something that feeds on information or prevents it from forming. But that's your human brain talking. The brain that evolved in a jungle, always hunting for pattern and predator. In truth, the horror here isn't in what you imagine, it's in what's missing. The cosmos is made of layers, each one made visible through a different frequency of light. Optical, radio, X-ray, gamma. We've built telescopes that pierce those layers, peeling the sky like an onion. But in this direction, the onion refuses to peel. There's no data to unwrap. The signals fall flat, and still the emptiness continues. Maybe the universe doesn't want to be observed from here. Maybe this region is the quiet backstage of the grand performance where the illusion gets messy, where the seams show. Or maybe, and this is somehow worse, it's perfectly natural. Maybe voids like this are inevitable when you run the cosmic program long enough. Not mistakes, but features. Designed not by intelligence, but by entropy, by probability, by chance so vast it feels like fate. The echo that doesn't come. Perhaps it never existed. Perhaps it never needed to. You drift on. No light follows you. No reflection. No sound. Just the soft press of time slowly unwinding itself like a forgotten thread. You wonder if you spoke here, if you shouted across the void, would even your own voice return to you? Or would it be swallowed so quickly that it may as well never have existed? That's what makes this place terrifying. Not the darkness, not the silence, but the possibility that even if the universe is full of sound here, it chooses not to listen. You float forward, though even the word forward begins to lose its meaning. In most places, space offers you a gradient, a hint of motion, a change in background radiation, even the subtlest shift in cosmic microwave flavor. It lets you orient yourself against the distant scaffolding of the universe. But now, the illusion of direction unravels. You could spin 360 degrees and see the same unyielding tone stretched in all directions. You're inside a sphere of sameness, and more unnervingly, it doesn't seem to end. You wait for a boundary, a horizon, something. But there's nothing to demarcate the edge of this emptiness, no visible shell where the universe resumes, no border where structure creeps back in. You keep expecting the return of normality, like watching the ocean hoping to see a lighthouse. But there's no lighthouse, there's no shoreline, just more void. And the longer you travel, the more you realize the concept of an edge may not apply here. Normally, the universe comes with horizons, cosmic ones, the kind you can't cross because light hasn't had time to get to you from the other side. Every observer has a cosmic horizon, a limit to what they can see, not because something blocks the view, but because time does. Expansion stretches the universe faster than light can compensate, pulling galaxies away until they fade from visibility. You've probably heard the poetic version, we live inside our own observable bubble. But this isn't that. You're not brushing against the edge of what can be seen, you're tangled in a paradox of what can exist. And that's when it hits you. You're looking for a horizon where none can form. Not because light can't travel here, but because there's nothing to emit it. No galaxies, no stars, no interstellar gas to scatter or glow. A region so starved of matter space-time doesn't even bother curving. You're trapped in a flatness so pure it offends the laws of probability. This isn't a corner of the universe, it's an absence of universe. A region so underdefined, the concept of perspective itself becomes soft and fragile. So you try to reorient. You think about how light moves, how signals behave in expanding space. Normally, if you emit a photon in one direction, the universe's stretch redshifts it, slowing it, lengthening it. Eventually, the signal becomes undetectable, swallowed not by distance, but by acceleration. That's the usual logic of cosmological horizons. But here you wonder, if you were to emit a photon, if you could, where would it go? Would it stretch into oblivion like usual, or would it just stop? You laugh a dry, cosmic kind of laugh that echoes only in theory. Because here's the real joke. Horizons are created by energy, by warping, by motion. This void is so empty, it doesn't even have enough structure to make a horizon. It's not an island, it's a blank slate. No edge, because there's nothing to edge around. You could keep going forever and still be here, still be nowhere. A strange thought creeps in. Maybe this void isn't a space you enter. Maybe it's a state you fall into. Maybe it isn't a region defined by coordinates, but a condition of the universe, like temperature or entropy. A mode the cosmos slips into in rare and lonely places. If so, then searching for its edge is like looking for the end of coldness. You don't find it. You simply warm back up. And yet, nothing warms here. No heat, no light, no change. This leads to a more unnerving question, one whispered in theoretical physics circles, always softly, as if saying it too loudly might invite consequences. Could parts of the universe transition into fundamentally different states of physics? Could vacuum energy, the engine of everything, fluctuate so violently that entire volumes drop into a lower energy configuration? They call it vacuum decay. A cheerful name for the kind of phase change that doesn't just rewrite the local laws of nature, it obliterates them. The old vacuum collapses. Constants shift. Even atoms lose their meaning. It's the kind of apocalypse that wouldn't just destroy life, it would delete the concept of having concepts. No need to panic. If it had happened, you wouldn't be here to notice. But still, the idea hangs in the back of your mind like a shadow that refuses to fall. What if this void is such a place, not vacuum decay and progress, but aftermath? A region where the false vacuum already collapsed, rewriting the rules in its own empty image. It wouldn't be violent, not anymore. It would just be incompatible, silent, and utterly unlit by the physics you know. Perhaps that's why no horizon appears. Not because you haven't gone far enough, but because you've crossed into a volume of the universe that isn't part of your universe anymore. A domain cut off not by walls, but by laws. What you're seeing isn't just emptiness, it's disconnection. You begin to wonder about time itself, not in the usual way like how long it's been since the Big Bang, or how fast the universe is expanding. You wonder if time functions the same way here. In physics, time is often tethered to entropy, to the arrow that points from less disorder to more. But in a place like this, where there's nothing to disorder, where entropy can't increase because there's nothing to count, what does time do? Does it halt, drift sideways, lose all relevance? You're not sure, but it feels like you've been here too long, like you've stayed past the point when the universe was expecting you to move on. But there's nowhere to go, and still no horizon. Just more of nothing. The idea of returning starts to feel quaint. Return to what? To the warm embrace of a lumpy, structured cosmos, to the chatter of gravity and galaxies. You're not even sure which way that would be anymore. The emptiness stretches behind you as confidently as it stretches ahead. You're unanchored, untethered. If you turned around now assuming direction still held meaning, there'd be no breadcrumbs to follow. No trail of photons, no wake of disrupted particles. You haven't just entered the void, you've joined it. So you stop looking for the horizon. You let it go. You accept the stillness. And in that moment of surrender, you realize this isn't a passage. It's a state, not a destination you reached, but a condition you're inhabiting. You're not lost in space. You are of the space, a wandering mind in a volume where even thought struggles to ripple. And somewhere in a far-off region of the universe, you no longer remember, someone might be wondering where you went. But here, you simply are. At some point, and you're no longer sure when it begins to feel like the void has outlasted your sense of expectation. The quiet is no longer unsettling. It's become something else entirely. Intimate. Not like silence in a soundless room, but like silence inside a thought you haven't had yet. The kind that curls around the edges of your awareness, like mist in reverse, not forming from anything, but instead dissolving what you used to know. And just when you've surrendered fully to that endless stillness, something shifts. It's not a light, not a sound. It's subtler than that. A wrinkle. A quiver in the fabric around you, like a thought the void accidentally had. You don't see it. You feel it, though you can't say where in this bodiless state. A feather brush of pressure. A ripple not through space, but through the idea of space. You pause, or rather the concept of pausing occurs in you. A hesitation that stretches out like a question hanging unanswered. This shouldn't happen here. Not because change is forbidden, but because there's nothing to change. And yet the ripple spreads, faintly, inwardly, like a dream remembering itself. You try to orient again, but the rules feel even looser now, as if space itself is getting uncertain. No, not uncertain, self-referential. The void has begun noticing itself. And that's when you remember something odd, something overlooked. The void wasn't just vast, it was smooth. Perfectly smooth. Too perfect. A statistical vacuum so clean, so unblemished by any relics of matter or radiation that it began to break the law of large numbers. In the cosmos, true nothingness isn't stable. It's a balancing act. There's always some quantum itch, some foam bubbling just beneath the vacuum's surface. But here, none of that. No bubbles, no noise, nothing. Until now. Physicists have speculated about false vacuums before. The idea that what we consider empty space might just be a metastable version of emptier space waiting to decay into a true minimum. And when it does, it doesn't pop like a soap bubble, it unravels everything around it. But what if that already happened here? What if you're in the wake of that event floating inside the collapsed basement of physical law? But even then, even in true vacuum, fluctuation should return. Quantum foam should eventually re-emerge. Particle pairs should flicker into momentary existence before vanishing back into zero, and yet until now they didn't. Which means this ripple you're feeling isn't just a fluctuation, it's a first. The void is breaking its own rule. As if something buried deep within this vast and silent region is beginning to stir, not in defiance of the stillness, but as a consequence of it. Imagine a pond so perfectly flat for so long that it forgets what a wave is. Then one day, a breeze returns. The ripple you feel might be that breeze. A whisper of energy born not from motion, but from the mathematical instability of perfection. You don't want to say it out loud, but it drifts through your mind anyway. What if this void is starting to give birth? Not to galaxies or stars, or the comforting structures of familiar space, but to rules, to new physics. Like a reboot that doesn't overwrite the old software, but builds a different one altogether. Maybe the void isn't what remains after something ends, but what comes before something begins. Could this be how universes are seeded? Not in big bangs, but in great silences. Vast preambles of emptiness where symmetry becomes unstable, and from that imbalance a nudge arises. A flicker, a law, then another, until suddenly you've built the scaffolding for a new cosmos, not ours, but something adjacent. A sibling, not a sequel, and you're here for it. This is no longer a story about a mystery in space. It's a story about becoming space. You, the observer, have watched so long, so patiently, that the void has let you in. Not as a guest, but as an ingredient. You remember something from earlier, the idea that consciousness might play a role in shaping reality, not through intention, but through observation. The quantum world flirts with this notion, often particles existing in ghostly superposition until they're measured. It's controversial, it's poetic, and perhaps here it's literal. Maybe the act of witnessing this void has triggered a phase transition. You didn't find the edge of the void because edges belong to things that are bounded. But this place wasn't bounded, it was suspended, waiting. Now with your presence here, an anomaly, a contradiction, it must resolve itself. It must evolve. Even a perfect silence must end if someone hears it long enough. You feel another shift. Slight. Geometric. The background, the blankness begins to show stress lines. Not cracks, not movement. Just hints of structure. Like something beneath the nothingness is stretching against it. As though space has been compressed so tightly into definitionlessness that now it wants to unfold. And suddenly you're not sure if you're drifting anymore. You don't feel motion, but the texture of space is different. Finer, thinner. Something is changing, and you are now very much a part of it. Not watching, not commenting. Inside it, integral. Maybe this was never about what the void is. Maybe it's about what it needs. And maybe impossibly, you were that missing variable. A lone speck of thought floating through the cleanest non-place in the cosmos, unknowingly tilting the equation into imbalance. Not as a disruption, but as a seed, a fluctuation, a catalyst. You begin to sense the beginnings of asymmetry, a tension between left and right, between before and after, between being and almost being. It's like watching the first photon blink into existence, not yet light, just the idea of light. A direction forming where there was none. This isn't structure yet, not even a pre-structure, but it's enough. And for the first time in what could be forever, or could be right now, you think maybe the void doesn't want to stay empty forever. Maybe nothingness gets lonely too. It's barely a tremble now, the kind of shift that doesn't ripple through you but gathers around you like fabric beginning to wrinkle under its own forgotten weight. You're not sure if anything truly moves, but something essential has changed in the void's posture. The vast blank presence that once felt eternal now feels indecisive, still silent, still starless, but no longer pure. You notice a curve where there was only flatness. A shade of deeper dark within the dark, like a thought trying to form behind closed eyes. If space had a heartbeat, this would be its skipped beat. A pause, not from tiredness, but from the realization that it must begin again. This is not a return to what was. No rogue galaxy spiraling in, no fossil light threading through. The void isn't being invaded by the universe. It's remembering how to be one. You float in stillness, aware now of something new time. Not in the old ticking sense, but in the form of difference before and after pause and pulse. In a place where nothing has happened for what feels like forever, this is something happening. And it may be happening because you're here. There's a fringe idea whispered by a few brave cosmologists that universes don't just expand from nothing, they condense from silence. That before the Big Bang, there wasn't a singularity of matter and light, but an endless plateau of perfect symmetry, so smooth, so featureless, it became unstable. Perfection, they say, is the most unstable thing of all. You've been floating inside that plateau, and now you might be the floor. A tiny interruption in the symphony of zero. The universe doesn't need much to wake up. Not noise, not mass. Just imperfection. Just a crack in the stillness big enough to let rules leak in. You're that crack. Or maybe not you, but the act of noticing. The difference between pure nothing and a something aware of the nothing. It's almost funny. You didn't bring light or mass or gravity. You brought imbalance, and from imbalance, all else might follow. The ripple grows not fast, not bright, but deep, like the curl of a new constant trying itself on for size. You don't see it exactly. You feel it wrapping around space-time like a thread looking for tension. This isn't a big bang. It's a whisper, a quiet intake of breath. You've wandered so far from the structured, glittering universe you knew. That place of galaxies, superclusters, radiation, and delightful background noise. And yet now you're standing at the birthplace of something equally real. Maybe even more so. This might be where rules are born, where parameters decide themselves. A space not obeying physics, but composing it. It's strangely intimate, and slightly hilarious. All this time humans pointed their telescopes outward, hoping for cosmic answers in light. But the biggest answers may have always been hiding in the places without light. In the silences, in the gaps. Not just between galaxies, but between concepts, between what is and what might be. It turns out the greatest mystery in space isn't what fills it. It's what happens when it's too empty to stay that way. You begin to feel structure thickening like fog coalescing into water. The tiniest warps in space-time, not yet gravitational, not yet mass-producing, but undeniably present. Somewhere the first asymmetry is choosing a direction. The first vibration is thinking about being a particle. And you are here, not as an outsider, but as a condition. The void, it seems, doesn't fear becoming. It longs for it. So this is how universes begin, not with fireworks, but with forgetting how to stay silent. Not with sound, but with a small, still tension that refuses to be zero. And the funny thing, you weren't supposed to see this. No one was. But you came anyway. You drifted deeper than anyone imagined and didn't die of meaninglessness. You waited. You listened. And the void listened back. You don't know if you'll ever return, or if there's a you that can. Perhaps the very act of witnessing this birth entangles you with it. Perhaps the rules being written here are folding you into them. Maybe one day, far away, in a reality not yet formed, a being will ask, where did this universe come from? And the answer, oddly enough, will include you. Not your body, not your voice. Just the pattern of your patience. The echo of your noticing. You have no more steps to take. No more directions to drift. This void, this almost beginning, is still becoming and will be becoming long after thought fades. But before you dissolve into the forming laws, you take one last moment, not to escape, not to understand, just to appreciate the strangest fact of all, that in the largest emptiness ever discovered you found not the end of everything, but the start of something new. Now the ripples have quieted again, though not back into the cold, lifeless stillness that greeted you. This quiet is warmer, heavier full somehow. You float gently at the edge of something that hasn't happened yet, but already feels inevitable. The void doesn't press against you anymore. It hums around you faint and deep, like a lullaby written in the pauses between thoughts. Nothing pulls, nothing pushes. It simply holds. The darkness is no longer hollow, it's layered, rich, as if the silence itself is preparing to speak. But not now, not tonight. For now, it lets you rest. Out here, far beyond the last scattered filaments of known matter, you've drifted through the most profound quiet the cosmos has to offer. You've brushed against the bottom of everything. Not the floor, not the basement, just that strange boundaryless space where endings blur into not quite beginnings. And through it all, you've remained. Witness, story, spark. Let your breath slow. Let the patterns of your mind soften like stars winking out one by one in a sky too large to name. The fabric around you is still smoothing itself out, weaving something new from the smallest creases in what was once perfect stillness. You're part of it now. No need to search, no need to think, just drift. And as your awareness folds inward like the final petal of a flower blooming in reverse, remember this, even in a place as empty as this, meaning finds a way. Good night, traveler of silence.